Christ is risen?
He is risen indeed.
Hallelujah. God be praised. We have Easter. Now, we were talking about that. Easter 2 or Easter 3? It's the third Sunday in Easter, recognizing that Easter is this great 7-week season.
Yeah.
So you have 7 weeks of Lent, 7 weeks of Easter that extend from the Resurrection Sunday all the way until the Ascension of Jesus. And then 10 days later we have Pentecost. So we're in the third Sunday of that, which is the Sunday on the way to Emmaus. That's where we hear the gospel, at least in the 3-year lectionary, Luke 24. It's beautiful. It's an Easter Sunday happening. They go on the road to Emmaus and Jesus hides himself with his face and he reveals himself with the scriptures. This teaches us so much. So that's kind of the theme for that. And the hymn of the week that we're using is this, "With high delight, let us unite." So what can you tell us about this guy?
Well, this tune kind of evolved. So sometimes, tunes are written specifically, like somebody sits down and they have a text maybe and they want to write a tune. But this one sort of has a little bit of a history. The earliest, so I'm gonna give you a plug for this first. Okay, so just unless you think that we're all so smart, okay, at least for me, I'm talking about me now, there's this great new companion to Lutheran Service book that's been released at the beginning of this year. It's a 2-volume set, and it has one of them is just specifically on all the hymns. It gives you all the information about the tunes and the texts that they were able to find. And this has been greatly expanded and revised and improved compared to so many of the companions that have been out before. There's just so much more information available, more research, more hymnological finds that people have come up with and been able to really investigate and be able to get their hands on some old sources. So this is really done quite well. And then the other volume actually talks about a little bios about the composers and the authors and translators and people who were involved in the production of this hymnal in that way. So this is available from Concordia. It's a little bit steep for the price, but there is a great amount of information in there. So
I wish in my whole life I've ever met someone who's written for that. Do you know anybody?
I don't know anybody.
How about you have like 4 articles in there?
Anyway. Yeah. So anyway, these books. So what I found in there was that this tune was. So we're going to take a couple steps back. So before this, and we don't know who actually wrote the tune, but they borrowed from some previous manuscripts. Okay, so and the earliest one goes all the way back to 1529. Okay, Clement Moreau, who was alive from the last few years of the 1400s, so 1496, and he lived till 1544. He was from France, and he wrote many songs, and they called them chansons. Okay, that's a French song. It's a chanson, and this particular chanson has been drawn back to one that he wrote for Psalm 138. Okay, so this was found in a book of 50 Psalms of David that was published, after 1529. And it was written, and he didn't write the psalm. He got the tune. I don't know where he got the tone from, okay? But he took this and he used it to accompany Psalm 138. Right? Then a little bit later, some many years later, someone took that version and then they put it into this version that we have now in our hymnal. So I actually was able to go online, which is the great thing about online, is that I was able to find the cover page of the Psalms, the 50 Psalms. Okay, and in that, then I was able to find Psalm 138 and actually find the music that Clement used for his text. So he didn't write the tune, but he wrote the text. Okay, so the tune sounds somewhat like it, so you can see kind of where it was devised from. And I'm going to just play just a little bit of it for you. See. Sounds familiar, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then. Okay, and then it's repeated. Okay. Okay, so pretty similar. Then a little bit more. Right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Now here's where the big difference is. But even there, you can still hear within that sort of the note. So somebody took that, pretty sure somebody took that and kind of condensed it and put it into a setting so that it could be sung by a larger group of people for a congregation. And then Georg Vetter, who actually wrote this text with high delight, either he did that or somebody took his text and they married the two together. And then the famous translator and hymn text composer Martin Franzmann.
Look at that.
Then Martin Franzmann, who wrote the text for "Thy Strong Word," amongst let's see what else. In Adam we have all been one. O God, O Lord of heaven and earth. He wrote those texts. This text he didn't write. He translated it because the text was already there. But he.
Does it mean something on this that the notes are square instead of round?
Well, so those are chant. Those are chant, old notation, first notation, and so there's a fair amount of similarity from there, but as it evolved.
I might put this on the screen so people can see it. I'll do a close-up.
There you go.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So that's kind of where the tune came from, and then of course the text, as we just talked about, Georg Vetter from 1536, 1599, and that era. He was a Bohemian brother and priest. And kind of hung out with the Calvinists, and some of his psalm translations made it into Brethren hymnal, and so that's kind of where that's at.
As you can recognize the fingerprints of Franz, I think on the second stanza especially, because he's punchy. Martin Franzmann. He wanted to be known as an exegete, and some of his best work, he wrote this introduction of the New Testament, and it's beautiful. But he's most famous for his hymns, and so it's just the past generation. But listen to some of these words. True God, he first from death has burst forth into life, all subduing. His enemy doth vanquished lie. His death has been death's undoing. And yours shall be like victory over death and grave, saith he who gave his life for us, life renewing. So Jesus dies, his death overcoming the victory. Then Jesus turns to us and he says, and your death will be like victory. Woo! That's fantastic. Fantastic. All right, should we sing it?
Sure.
Okay. all joy and full consolation. That's this. So, one of the things that I think is good for us to remember is that there's a stoicism sometimes to Lutherans or maybe to all Christians, and you don't want to. We're worried that our emotions take over, right? And rightly so. I mean, the culture, if it feels good, do it. That's the idea of the culture. And we say, no. There's a right and a wrong that's come from the Scripture, but our emotions serve the Lord's word. And this is a great example. Is that you hear that Jesus is risen from the dead, and you can't. I mean that. Right. It's not. Jesus wasn't just risen for himself. It's for us. It brings us great joy. Fantastic. Yeah. And in fact, that idea, joy. That's what the disciples say after Jesus disappears, and they say, "Didn't our hearts burn within us?" Right. As he spoke with us on the way, and as he opened the Scriptures to us. And so we want to, when we sing the Lord's praises and when we hear the Lord's word, our hearts burn within us for joy. Great. Well, any last thoughts on the hymn or on the Sunday?
It's a great text, great hymn.
Yeah. With high delight, let us unite. God be praised. And blessed Easter second or third Sunday. Blessed third Sunday in Easter. Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed.
I snuck up on you? You weren't ready for that? You didn't know it's Easter? Okay, here we go.
Sorry.
Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed.
Hallelujah. God be praised.